The Rubik's Cube is a German toy that became a global sensation in the 1980s. Its rise to popularity largely comes from its simple design as a puzzle that requires complex strategy to solve. Today, it is considered a classic toy with a bit of nerd appeal, and it is still impressive when solved by any. The rise in popularity of the Rubik's Cube can be compared to another hot item, the cost of public higher education. It has a long history and is also complicated to remedy, a lot like the toy. But the question on the table is, can we solve it? You see, when higher education began in the U.S. in the 17th century, it was solely accessible to young white men seeking to gain status as a gentleman or to enter the clergy. This exclusive training could only be afforded by the wealthy, and this continued until higher education expanded in the 20th century. The growth of women's colleges, HBCUs, and junior colleges prompted a massive increase in the student population. Between 1900 and the close of World War I, colleges and universities saw student enrollment increase from 5.5 to 15.5%. Suddenly, higher education became more accessible based on gender, race, and socioeconomic status. Students enrolled to gain knowledge, financial wealth, and job security. However, these benefits came at a high price. Questions of who pays for college and who is a true beneficiary became regular conversation. If higher education was a public good, then governments and institutions would be responsible for the cost, but graduates would need to use their new knowledge and resources to support their communities. However, if it were a private good, students and families would be responsible for the rising expenses. During the initial growth of higher education in the early 1900s, the average cost of tuition, room, and board was $600. However, over the course of the next century, those prices skyrocketed to an average of $17,000. Additionally, students are also responsible for other fees such as books and supplies, healthcare, technology, and student activities. When all of these developments, it is understandable that costs have to rise. However, we have quickly approached a threshold where higher education has become out of reach. Students and families are taking out loans well beyond their means to access the great equalizer in order to attain better jobs, earn more income. But unless they graduate, these 5- and 6-figure loans will push them further into financial distress. As a result, many low-income students are choosing not to enroll at all, which ultimately widens the gap of low, middle, and upper-class students. This becomes problematic for colleges because they are losing out on talented individuals because of their extreme costs. Even for students who are able to gain entrance, their ability to be retained and graduate is hindered if they need to work multiple jobs to afford tuition payments. Regardless of the situation, the promise of social equity is lost, and institutions have to scramble to find ways to restore access and opportunity. Ultimately, this leads many to ask the question, is higher education worth the cost? Some say yes, some say no, some say it depends, and some aren't sure. The debate persists in national politics and within the profession, but regardless of the answer, we must ask ourselves, what can we do about it?